I certainly did not expect I would be casting these two StarCraft 2 Legends face off against each other in a tournament finals in 2023. The last time I saw these two actively compete is about a decade ago, so it's been a very long time. What I've got for you today is the finals of the StarCraft 2 Legends tournament. This was a quote-unquote little mini-tournament that was played alongside the main event at Gamers 8. Now I say quote-unquote mostly because this was a $40,000 event with a 4-man invitational, so obviously that is a very large prize pool and significantly bigger than some of the other events that I cover on the channel all the time. So a mini-tournament, at least compared to the prize pool of Gamers 8 itself. Either way, the finals right here, I think you're really gonna get a kick out of this. We start off on a legendary map. This map is called Overgrowth. Spawning right here in the top right hand corner, playing with the blue Protoss pieces, we have the boss toss himself. We're looking inside of the main base of MC. His opponent in the opposite corner, playing right here with the red Zerg drones. He goes by the name of Stephano. Stephano versus MC facing off in a finals of a StarCraft tournament in 2023. I mean, that was not on my bingo card, okay? If you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, this was not on my StarCraft 2 bingo card. So real quick, in case you're unfamiliar, MC, an absolute legend. Like I said, he was known as the boss toss. He won a whole lot of tournaments, including GSL Codes back in the day. I think he won multiples of those, actually. I remember at least 2. But maybe he's won more than that. I'm not exactly sure. He's got like $500,000 in tournament earnings over the course of his career. And I believe he retired in like 2014 or so. Right around the same time, actually, as Stephano retired. I know that both players decided to continue competing in tournaments every once in a while. Stephano always sort of said he would retire, and then he went to school for a while, but he would still compete in tournaments. So it's not really a, you know, a black and white line, right? It's not very obvious when exactly he decided to retire, but he stopped playing the game, I guess full-time is the best way to say it, in like, I think 2014 or so, with roughly $320,000 in tournament earnings, which is not bad whatsoever. And of course, that does not include any team salaries, sponsorships, and all the rest of it. So certainly nothing to scoff at. These are legends from the early days of StarCraft 2, but how good are they in 2023? That is the main question. So just to clarify, we're going to be playing all of these games on old maps. So Overgrowth is a legendary StarCraft map. If you've been playing this game for a long time, you may remember it. This was one of the most popular maps in the early days of StarCraft 2. The thing is, we are playing with the modern StarCraft 2 balance patch. So this is the current patch, but we're playing on old maps. Meaning that there's a very good chance that some of the strategies are just a little bit, like some of the strategies that you can play are gonna be a little bit out of whack for this particular map layout. Like for example, when this map was first introduced, we didn't have disruptors, right? We may have had swarm hosts or something, but we did definitely not have lurkers. So there are certain areas of the map that you can take control of that would probably not be considered okay in 2023 with the current balance of the game. Either way, this was of course just for some additional nostalgia and to give these players maybe a little bit more comfort, because I can imagine that one of the maps actually that was included in this little mini tournament, so like I said, it's a 4-man invitational. We had MC, Stephano, MMA, and MVP. Another, you know, absolute legends, but in every single, or another 2 absolute legends. One thing I noticed is that one of the modern maps that we decided to include in this little event was Golden Wall. So Golden Wall is one of my absolute favorite maps of all time. I think it's fantastic. I would love to see it make a return, well, to the current map pool of StarCraft 2. I think that would be pretty sick. But anyways, in every single one of the games, the players decided to veto that one as their very first choice. So I think that's a pretty clear example of them just not being aware of that map whatsoever, and they decided to play the ones that at the very least they do somewhat remember. Okay, so enough blabbering. It's been 4.5 minutes and I haven't talked about the game yet. Both players playing a macro-focused style here so far. MC decides to go for a Void Ray first into now a Twilight Council together with a bunch of additional gateways here. Okay, so Void Ray into Oracle. Where's the Oracle? Okay, it's just hanging out over at the 3rd base. So this is really just one of those builds that will keep you safe against practically everything, but yeah, you don't really deal any damage on the other side of the map. The follow-up, however, okay, it's not gonna be Blink together with +1 ground weapons, like we see very often in 2023. Instead, we see MC going for a Glaive Adept opener. Now, of course, this is not something that is, well, rare, right? We see this all the time in StarCraft 2 tournaments these days as well. But how much experience does MC really have? So the Adept was introduced with... It was not around in Wings of Liberty. Was it introduced with Legacy of the Void or with Heart of the Swarm? We have the Tempest that got introduced later, the Disruptor that got introduced later, the Adept, and then I'm forgetting one more unit. Oh, the Oracle, I guess. The Oracle wasn't around in the early days of StarCraft 2, was it? It's kind of funny. It's kind of difficult to remember the game as it was back in the early days, just because some of the units, man, like some of the units, like for example the Ravager, right? That wasn't introduced until much later. It's hard to imagine the game without it. Now, Robo Facility here is a little bit late for MC, so he's not going to be able to reinforce this very easily. Yeah, Prism is coming up right now, but that one is a little late. It's not going to be easy for him to warp in additional stuff, but luckily for him, Overgrowth is a pretty small map compared to modern standards. So there's a chance that he can get some work done. Not a very effective first shade right here, because it's going to be on cooldown right now. Okay, normally we do the first warp-ins on the other side of the map. Is Zerg going to be prepared for this? Okay, he's going to be moving forward. So far, only 4 drones have fallen. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, so, yeah. Prism is hanging out. It's still hanging out. Fantastic. So no reinforcements coming in. I mean, we could warp them in and walk them across the map, I suppose, but this is going to be very, very slow. That Prism is not coming with this army. 6 drones have gone down up to this point. The target firing not quite optimal. All right, Stephano manages to hold on with relative ease. Yeah, one of the strategies that I always think of whenever I think of Stephano is the Roach Max. This is a strategy that we've been seeing for years and years and years in StarCraft 2, but somebody had to come up with it, right? And I don't remember if it was Stephano who invented, quote-unquote, invented this strategy, but he was the first player that really pulled it off successfully over and over and over again. So back in the early days of StarCraft 2, we would see players, well, go for a single void, right? Like in this particular game. And then they would just assume that roaches were going to be off limits for basically the majority of the rest of the game, because attacking against a unit that you could not attack, absolutely ludicrous idea. Why would you ever do that, right? And Stephano was the type of guy who would go for 66 workers, 3-base saturation, and then just max out on mass roach. And players would not really, be able to deal with just the overwhelming numbers that he would send across the map. That's the strategy that I always think of whenever I think of Stephano. For MC, he was, in my mind, very much so a timing attack-oriented player. It's, by the way, going to be a Swarm Host transition right here from Stephano. Okay. No Nidus network, though. Anyways, a Swarm Host transition, whereas his opponent right now is going double Disruptor play. Very cool. MC, he was the type of guy who would really popularize certain timing attacks. So I remember him going for a lot of 2-base aggression. So a lot of Archon Immortal Sentry all-ins, a lot of Immortal Sentry all-ins. A lot of, I'm making a 3rd base and then I'm canceling it at the last possible second to warp in additional Zealot type of all-ins. He would try to trick the opponent and then pull off some stellar micro on the other side of the map. Now, obviously, the game has moved past that meta many, many years ago. So, cool to see that MC is playing a pretty normal build right here as well. That being said, though, that Glaive Adept aggression certainly wasn't that effective, mostly because he couldn't reinforce and the targeting was a little bit subpar. I can imagine, though, that, like I said, MC doesn't have that much practice against the, well, Zerg armies, right? I can imagine he doesn't really play the game that much anymore these days. So, because of that, there's a very good chance that he just hasn't played with the Adept nearly as often as some of those other units. Anyways, right now the Swarm Host does get spotted. Swarm Host, of course, a unit that has gone through many changes as well over the years. Definitely a different unit than when it was first introduced in Heart of the Swarm. Okay. So, let's see. By the way, if you would like to see those other players compete as well, MVP and MMA, let me know down below in the comments section of this video. I would definitely not be against casting some of their games as well. Ooh, Prism over here gets unloaded, finds a couple of these Swarm Hosts. That can be kind of annoying. So far, the Swarm Hosts have achieved nothing. Stephano decides to launch a big wave of Locusts towards the Watchtower, but the Protoss army is long gone, and instead, a couple more of those Swarm Hosts get sniped over at the 3rd base. Natural expansion, maybe wide open. Okay, I think he may have been able to wiggle some of those links around, although it was a little hard to say. Now the Swarmos, though, are finding an angle. This is not with the Nidus Worm, which is really the only way we ever see Swarmos in 2023. They're just simply walking on over here. Very exposed right now, because getting those units back to safety is going to be tricky. Stephano, though, did leave a bunch of units behind as well at home, which you love to see. Nexus itself now in a lot of trouble. Battery overcharge is not gonna save it, no. That Nexus just fell. Okay. In the meantime, though, yeah, since there is no Nidus Worm available, this is painful. The Zerg decides to walk the Swarmos back home, but that is not really where you want to have them. Although some really nice Disruptor hits there, killing a load of the Zerglings. Still, it's going to come at the cost of a lot of very expensive Protoss units as well. Immortals going down, Disruptors ended up falling there as well. Blink forward here by MC to try and maybe catch a couple more of these Zerg units. Okay, both players are gonna continue macroing up right now. MC really should have run a little while ago, though, because he must have realized that reinforcements for the Zerg are gonna be coming up. Bailing speed on the back of this. +3 missile is coming up. +2 melee is coming up. It's gonna be Roach Ravager Ling Bane, I believe, here for Stephano. On the back of this. 2 Immortals. Hello, 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 hello. Please go home. Please recall them or something. Although I guess that's a spell that wasn't around when MC was still playing this game actively. Now that is super painful. Some errors being made right here by, well, honestly, both players, but I think MC got the worst of the 2 traits right there. Big Warpin in the main base. Maybe these Zealots can help him even the odds a little bit, but now the Zerglings are also running straight into the natural as well as the main base. If they can get 1 Immortal, that would already justify that run by. Zealots over here, killing a couple drones, but really not that many. In the meantime, probes are going to town over here. I think that this Immortal, if it gets targeted, it would certainly fall. Okay, well, Immortal in the natural turns out to be pretty immortal indeed. 8 confirmed kills to its name. Okay. Now Stephano, though, is ready to go for an attack. He's put down on... I don't think you want to make Ultras here. Your opponent has shown so many Immortals and Archons. Ultras are pretty horrible against those units. Maybe if it was only Archons, it would be okay, but Immortals absolutely tear those Ultralisks apart, especially without any armor upgrades, so let's hope he's not going to be making any of those units. Roaches, though, are fighting the main army, whereas the Zerglings are going to town over here on that base. Okay, Immortal's very exposed. Okay, yeah, we have some pickup micro over here, that's good. This base over here in the top left-hand corner, though, pretty exposed right now, and if Stephano can somehow, some way clear that expansion, I think he's gonna be in a really good spot. He doesn't have a lot of eco here on the back of it himself either, but he does have the golden minerals right here on Overgrowth, and he does have the base in the bottom right as well. He's got a lot of supply already, well... I guess he got a lot of supply already dedicated right here to workers, right? But it's an effective amount of supply, because he has a bunch of workers at the golden minerals, which allows him to get away with less supply caught up in those drones than you normally would. Zerglings, though, once again running into the natural. And yeah, when it rains, it floods, right? When it rains, it pours. When it rains, it... I don't know what the correct saying is, but it doesn't really matter all too much. MC accidentally left the tap open once again, and... even though he's holding on, he's not dead just yet. The supply count is telling us a very clear story. He's gonna be able to go for one final attack here. He's got a scary amount of army. This is not an army that needs to be underestimated, but if Stephano manages to clear this army out, I think he is gonna be able to obtain the victory. This is an attack with an observer right now trailing a little bit behind. Giving up this expansion is certainly the right call. Stephano at this point maxed out, adding on a bunch of... Bailings here as well. If he can just take a good engagement here, fight this Protoss army head on, especially on creep, I think he's gonna feel very good about himself. Okay, we've got a couple of additional units being warped in, but you can see if it's just 2 Zealots, things are pretty desperate. The Protoss army gets overwhelmed, and Stephano wins game number 1. Alright, next up, we find ourselves on the map Frost. Now, Frost is another one of those maps that was very popular back in the day, but I think it would be considered quite imbalanced in 2023. The problem with this map is that it's a 4-player map. So there's 4 different spawn locations. Every single corner is where a player could have spawned. And that makes the strategy right here from Stephano even more ridiculous, as he decides to go for the fastest possible pool at 12 supply. Okay, so over the years, we've collectively decided that 4-player maps, while theoretically possible, statistically, it is pretty obvious that they are pretty imbalanced, right? Because they're symmetrically just not balanced. Say, for example, I think the best example I can give you is a Zerg versus Terran. If Terran gets lucky and their very first scouting worker that gets sent out scouts the Zerg natural first. If they manage to block the Zerg's natural, forcing the Zerg to take a third base first, and Zerg hasn't yet seen where the opponent has spawned, Zerg is effectively doing a coin flip. Because, say for example, that happened here, right? Terran was spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, they scout the Zerg player first because they got lucky. If Zerg decides to take their first base right over here, this high ground is basically impossible to hold on to. That being said, I personally don't quite mind 4-player maps. I think they actually can be kind of cool. Now, what are these reactions? They're definitely not optimal at all. Anyways, I think they could be kind of cool because they allow for some strategic variety. But I think a lot of the times those maps would just get vetoed in best of 3s and best of 5s. And, you know, the only times it would really come out is if it would be like a best of 7. And if it's a best of 7, do we really want the most important games, usually the ones that are played last, right, to take place on the maps that people play on the least because they don't like the 4-play? I don't know. It's always a little bit shaky, but yeah, personally, I'd have nothing against 4-player maps. I do think they could be kind of cool, but they're certainly not very popular in 2023. Anyways, let's talk about these strategies for a second. So, Stephano going for a 12 pool on a 4-player map. You can see the links right there running to the center, mostly because they didn't know where they actually needed to go. Luckily here, Stephano got lucky with his first Overlord, so he saw that the opponent was right over there, but he could have just gotten unlucky with this build. Not quite ideal. That being said, this is a very strange 12 pool. So it's a 12 pool with 6 Zerglings, a 17 supply hatch on the low ground, then a queen, and then finally drones again. You're already gonna be very far behind in the worker count if you go for an opener like this, and Stephano effectively put himself even further behind. The follow-up right here though from MC, after he got lucky and he scouted his opponent first, also not quite optimal. He decided to go for what is effectively a Forge Fast expand, a very popular build from the early days of StarCraft 2, but not really anymore these days, for very good reason, and that's because the Adept is around these days. Adepts are amazing when it comes to picking off slow Zerglings in the earlier stages of the game, and the Forge here has not really achieved anything. All it's really achieved, I guess, is to be a body block against Zerglings, and it's effectively delayed this Stargate by like half a minute. So not really achieving a whole lot. Very interesting already. Another thing, I guess, about 4-player maps. If Stephano would have found his opponent in a cross-spawn location, that would have been absolutely amazing for him, right? Because if the Protoss here is in a cross-spawn, Zerg suddenly has so many potential bases to take. So, I don't think that by default, 4-player maps are bad. It's just that statistically, we've never really had a great one that doesn't just have some spawn imbalances. Alrighty, Adepts shading forward over here. Double extractor trick right there by Stephano, who is going to have to deal right now with 2 Adepts, but the first shot of the Adepts is going to be on the extractor. Ugh. Not my favorite Adept micro, I'll be honest with you. I mean, to be fair, this is a unit that was mostly played very effectively after MC retired from the game, so maybe he just doesn't have as much practice messing around with the Adepts. But I think the Adept control could be a little bit more optimized. Anyways, it's going to be a Void Ray first once again here from MC, so he wants to make sure that he gets rid of these Overlords. Now, this third base location right here from Stephano is an interesting one. He decides to expand in the direction of the opponent, which is not something we normally see. I actually think expanding in the direction of the opponent as Zerg is pretty bad. Because of the larva mechanic, you normally have more workers, and therefore if you expand away from the opponent, you will have more time to react. And since you have a bigger economy, you should get more income than your opponent over time, and therefore you should gain more value off of your economy as well. So expanding away from the opponent is normally the name of the game. Stephano, though, again, going for a very strange approach. Third hatchery in the direction of the opponent. MC is like, don't mind if I do, as he expands in the direction of his opponent as well. So now they're effectively next door neighbors. He decides to go for a super quick lair, whereas on the other side of the map we already have a fleet beacon. And I actually really like the fleet beacon here. I think going straight into Tempest would be absolutely fantastic right here for MC. Couple shield batteries over here on the perimeter. You can most definitely hit the drones, but you can probably also hit the hatchery. It's gonna be an infestation pit right here though from Stephano. Interesting move. Infestation Pit, of course, can be very nice for that Swarm Host production once again, and they are a siege unit, so you can fly the Locust across this little chasm, but kind of dangerous. Zerglings over here at the front may have spotted that the Cybercore was spinning. There's a +1 air weapons researching there, and that's really the only option right now for MC, so if Stephano picked up on that, he should know that a Skytoss transition is underway. Infestation Pit is done. 2 more Overlords are just about to pop. Yep, it's gonna be the Swarm Host transition once again. Okay. Spreading creep here as well through the right side. So trying to get close to his opponent. Link's trying to see if they can run in, but even though this wall is a little bit cursed, there's multiple layers to it. It's like a victory lap right there through your base. Very nice. Carriers are coming up. Okay, so it's not gonna be Tempest. I actually think Tempest would have been better, but carriers are definitely still not going to be bad, as they can still harass the Zerg very effectively. With some shield batteries over here at the bottom. Although, those are also not coming up just yet. Twilight Council on the back of this. Okay, let's see. What are we going to do? Oracle here harassing. Only getting a single kill, not quite ideal. Yeah, it even gets sacrificed over here. Also not optimal. Locusts are gonna fly on over across the chasm and deal a bit of damage, but of course that also spoils the surprise a bit. Locust waves here a bit out of sync, so I don't really see... Yeah, okay, they get 1 kill at the very least, but that's because MC was a bit late on the pullback. Don't really see exactly what those Swarm Hosts are gonna be able to achieve here. Queens, though, joining in the fray as well. I think we should probably have the other 2 Queens from the natural and the main base joining in too. 2 carriers are out. Stephano did see that the Cybercore was researching, but I don't think he picked up on it. So these carriers are gonna hit him like a truck. Yeah, I did not realize that this was going on. Okay, he's gonna have to run away. The Queens can transfuse each other. That's beautiful and all, but only 6 probes have gone down. Spire on the back of this here for Stephano, but he's gonna have to deal with carriers, and soon there's gonna be 4 of them. I actually think MC could go straight for the opponent's natural expansion too. That would be very powerful, but apparently we're gonna settle on just harassing the 3rd base a little bit. And I mean, killing the 3rd would still be absolutely amazing, of course. Couple Overlords going down. Yeah, this is painful. Locust Wave over at the Nexus once again, but you can see that the shield battery is pretty helpful here. Few probes will end up dying, okay? Maybe more than a few. 7 probes in total for that little wave is not bad. The rest of the Swarm Host are moving a little bit further up north as well. Okay, they're gonna go ahead and activate their Locust Wave as they fly on over towards the main base. Zerg trying to get rid of the roaches, or Protoss rather trying to get rid of those Zerg roaches, and the 3rd base is in a lot of trouble, and it does now fall. Another hatchery has already been rebuilt. Ooh, Swarm Host in the meantime though, harassing both of the Stargates, and he will get both. That's actually a big snipe. That is basically all of the production right here from our Zerg, or sorry, from our Protoss. Zerg shutting down both of those Stargates, but the problem is he never actually made a Nidus Worm, and he gets spotted on the retreat. Yeah, if I can make if I can give Stephano one little tip when playing Swarm Host, I think going for a Nidus Worm is a fantastic choice, just so you can actually retreat and get those units out. This is painful. Very, very painful. Locust Wave hunting down the mineral line, but I don't think that these units are gonna make it. I guess they're dragging all of the carriers away, but MC can always just recall them. Yep, so the Locusts do arrive eventually, and then they time out. Battery overcharge was activated, but I think basically all of these units are gonna get, sniped right here by the Protoss. So, not a great situation right here for Zerg. That being said, MC is actually going for an interesting transition as well. He must have known that his opponent decided to go for a Spire. I don't know if he's seen the Spire. No, he hasn't seen it, but I guess he can guess. He has assumed here that it's going to be a Corruptor follow-up. So rather than doubling down on the carrier production, which I honestly wouldn't have minded, he's decided to now go for Storm. I think I saw Blink on that production tab as well. And he's just going to go Mass Gateway. And once again, he's moving forward over here with his army. Yeah, MC usually very decisive when it comes to his unit movement, right? So he must realize right now that his economy is substantially bigger than the Zerg's. So if he can snipe this hatchery over here with that army of his, that would be absolutely amazing. He sees it right now for the very first time. Corruptor's coming in. Storm is only halfway done. We're going to need to see a prismatic alignment here, but he's been using that one very effectively earlier already, so it's actually not available. The Nexus will fall. Okay, Hatchery in the meantime on the other side of the map also going down. I think. Yep, there it is. Another Nexus, though, has already been rebuilt here further up north for MC, and he didn't really lose any of his probes either. We do have the Corruptors returning back home, just hunting this down. I actually don't know if I like the transition down towards the Stalker army, especially with Storm being pretty late here, all things considered. Nice little bit of target firing right here by Stephano as he's trying to get rid of as many of these carriers as possible. Corrosive Bile also does connect. And despite the fact that this really should be an overwhelming advantage right here for MC, Stephano still gets a really nice trade. Okay. We're gonna go double Nexus now. Yeah, he didn't have a Prism or an Observer, right? But with that army that was moving across the map, so he didn't really have an easy way to reinforce, which makes all of this much more difficult. Okay. Can we maybe continue clearing out some of that? Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that, I'll be honest with you. Third hatch gets rebuilt another time here as well by Stephano. I think that is the third or maybe even the third hatchery we've ever seen, which is a bit painful. But yeah. 4 High Templar over here. They have a lot of Storm energy as well. And there we see the first Storm going down. Maybe not on the units that usually need to be countered by Storm, though. I wouldn't mind maybe seeing an Immortal or two. I don't think that would be a bad idea. But anyways, MC not going for any of the real counters right here to the Roach Ravager Bull. I mean, honestly, just Mass Stalker usually does quite well already. Probe here ends up getting sniped, or Observer rather ends up getting sniped. Some decent Corrosive Biles, and Stephano is really making the best of a bad situation. Problem is that on the back of this, MC will now have, 4 base economy. And the supply count, it is not really deceiving us very much. Blink forward once again. Those 3 Spore Crawlers have been occupying the carrier for a while. Would have been nice to see that one maybe going around, but I guess MC is maybe using the all army hotkey, or maybe he's just got everything in one big ball. Reinforcing Protoss units, though, are just marching across. He's decided not to go for... Okay. He's decided not to go for any sort of Prism play. But in the end, the army right here for Protoss is just much too big. He's basically doubling... Well, actually, when I started that sentence, exactly doubling his opponent's army supply and supply count in general. GG is called, and MC gets a point on the board. Another absolute classic map is next. We find ourselves on Cloud Kingdom. Now, I've decided to fast forward through the first 2 minutes of the game because everything was normal and both players have just been building up their economies. This has been a quick hatchery right here on the low ground by Stephano, who will probably be firing up that Zergling speed here in just a moment as he gets up to 100 gas, which he gets to right now. Okay, he doesn't have the minerals for it, but we'll see it in just a moment, I'm sure. His opponent in the meantime on the other side of the map also going for a fast expand. No Fort shenanigans this time around. Just a single gateway into a single Cyber Core and then, well, a Stargate inside of the main base. This is all very normal. Stephano scouts it out as well at the appropriate time, although the Overlord Scout is a little early. Normally, you do want to hang it around that gateway for just a little bit longer, just to see how many units are actually going to be popping out of that gateway and what it's going to be. But obviously, Stephano wants to make sure that he gets into the main base before a Stalker can really shoot him down. All right. I gotta say, though, the games overall, so far, they've been pretty high level, right? Like I said, we didn't really know exactly what to expect going into this particular event. So there was also at Gamers 8 a Brood War Legends tournament, and the 4 players that are participating in the Brood War Legends event, they also are currently participating in top tier tournaments. So they're actually, like, some of the guys have qualified for the ASL right now, and Fantasy apparently is the #1 player on the ladder currently. So he was one of the StarCraft Brood War Legends, but he's also one of the very best players in StarCraft Brood War currently. The StarCraft 2 guys, however, were like, I don't know, man, kind of some question marks in our heads. Now, obviously, the players knew that they were going to be participating in this event a little bit in advance, so they had some time to practice again and to make sure that they got some time to prepare for these matches and catch up on the meta and all that. But it's still very, it's still very much so a question mark, I think, in most people's minds. Everybody wants to see close games, but you never really know exactly what you're going to get. MC, once again, opting to go for the Void Ray opener. I don't really know exactly why. I mean, it's nice, of course, to snipe down a couple of your opponent's Overlords. But I don't think this is the most optimal version of the Protoss versus Zerg opener right now. A couple of Zerglings here are trying to get these Adepts. With good micro, I think they can get it. Oracle on the back of this, though, is going to make it difficult to get all of these units. So, not going to happen. The Lynx are going to be forced to back up once again. I remember on this particular map, you would actually see players sometimes wall off this high ground over here instead. So maybe some additional gateways could go down in this area to basically make it difficult for the Zerg to come in through that angle. And at the same time, obviously, you could do, yeah, a similar setup over here to prevent Baneling roll-bys and all the rest of it. Just a pretty closed-off map, all things considered. The main question is, though, where do you take your 4th base here? By the way, it's a 2nd Stargate into a fleet beacon once again here for MC. So, very, very quick fleet beacon here. It's essentially 2-base, I guess, carrier? 2-base Tempest? I mean, there's a 3rd Nexus building right now, but it is certainly a very, very quick fleet beacon. Anyways, much more conventional start here, by the way, for Stephano. Yeah. +1 melee, Lair coming up, we have a Roach Warren. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Baneling Nest shortly as well. It is indeed going to be a carrier right here for MC, fair enough. Anyhow, where in the world do you take your 4th base here on Cloud Kingdom? So for Stephano, yeah, he's going to go for the one over here on the low ground. You could go for the one over here. You could opt to go for the one all the way in the bottom right, but all of them are very, very exposed. Oracle joining in the fray as well. And I've got a feeling that if the queens don't step to the front very quickly, this hatchery is going to be super dead. Alright, 2 queens going to be activated, but Prismatic Alignment is also now active, and that is going to allow a lot of Protoss here to shut down that hatchery. He's going to cancel and try and restart it. Okay, eventually I think the queens will be able to push this back, but Stephano has no idea about what he's playing against. Carrier builds like the one that we are seeing here are not very popular at this level of play. Well, I mean, I don't really know exactly what this level of play means, but usually we don't really see it that often at the pro level of StarCraft 2, but if you're not prepared against carriers, you're in a lot of trouble. Stephano at this point, though, is going to go for the Spire. I think Spire play in general is really quite nice against Protoss, especially when they're just going to go for, well, just a single Void Ray into a single Oracle. It's a relatively low commitment first Stargate, and even though he may very well be planning to go Mutas here, I think that's usually a pretty good option. I think he'll be happy that he put down the Spire as soon as he gets a bit of vision on one of those carriers. Okay, Baneling Nest indeed coming up as well. Roach Speed is going to finish. Yeah, as long as we have control of the Watchtower over here, it's actually quite hard for the Protoss to... Oh, sorry, for the Zerg here to get a proper angle to fight from, right? Like, it could be once again Swarm Host play. I wouldn't mind seeing Swarm Host play on a map like this, but I guess against carriers, it's not quite ideal. Stephano is not going to see the carrier move out. That means that these units are not going to be spotted until right now, and that is rough. Luckily for him, though, yeah, he's got a lot of gas saved up. I think he can indeed produce a big round of Corruptors here if he wants to. Spore Crawlers are coming up at the front as well. But this is a nice timing right here, though, from MC. I actually really like this move. The queens are obviously very powerful. And I do believe that this is going to be pushed back for now, but mostly because Stephano was already adding on additional spores. Banelings are going to come up here on the left side of the map. Hoping for a lucky detonation right there in the mineral line. But obviously these are going to be slow Banelings, and they're only going to have +1 melee. So they shouldn't really deal a lot of damage to MC, assuming he's going to be on point. A big gateway transition once again. So basically the same strategy that MC wanted to play in the previous game, right? So he's going into... Yeah, this is not achieving anything. He's going into a carrier start, very quick carriers. Now this is a big scout right here for Stephano. And then a switch straight down, in tech at the very least, towards Blink together with a lot of additional gates. So as Zerg is preparing a ton of Corruptors to try and go after this carrier bull, I mean, it's 6 carriers, 8 Corruptors and 10 Queens is not that much. It's very easy, though, for Zerg to get carried away in units that are only really good when it comes to fighting air units, that they can very easily forget this massive Stalker transition right now. I actually wouldn't mind seeing MC go for a timing here. I think it would actually be kind of cool. It's not really something we see in 2023, but yeah, these carriers definitely need support. If you don't have Archons underneath, you don't have Stalkers, you don't have Storm or anything like that, these units can get picked off pretty easily. I really wouldn't mind seeing MC just warp in round after round after round of Stalker. Maybe get a, you know, a Prism and an Observer. I mean, that's something I've mentioned a few times already. Getting a bit of detection here to get rid of the creep would be really nice, but this is still not a bad engagement right here for the Protoss player. Yeah, the queens do have some transfusion energy, but you can see when all of the interceptors are deployed, Zerk is definitely struggling. Very cool strategy here, though, from MC. Don't really like him eating those biles for breakfast, but very cool strategy here overall. There's another 9 stalkers being warped in. We have zealots over here apparently getting the kill on that hatchery that Stephano was building on the left side of the map. And once again, he's getting some very efficient trades. Look at that. Look at the amount of resources lost right now on the side of the Protoss compared to the Zerg. This Nexus now finally gets spotted, but there's already some static defense done. Zealots here moving forward. I think charge is actually way too late. That upgrade should have been long done at this point. But anyways, those zealots were made earlier on to try and make sure that we didn't die to like a Zergling run by or something along those lines. I think there's still some optimization here that can be done to MC's strategy. Yeah, most notably the robo facility timing. I think it's just completely out of whack. Honestly, if you're a Protoss player out there and you don't know when you should be attacking in a game of StarCraft 2, I think the general advice is to always attack with a prism and with an observer. As long as you have those 2 criteria, it's probably a good moment for you to fight. It's very important, though, to be able to get rid of that creep and get, well, more reinforcements. Now suddenly... Okay, sorry, I missed that one. Now suddenly, there we go. We had Banelings rolling in from the left side of the map. This is now +2 Banelings. So that means they one-shot the probes. And with the roly-poly upgrade, it is really going to force the issue right now. MC is on the offensive. He wants to see if he can potentially win this game right here, right now. Still, though, this is a very scary Zerg army, right? Roach Ravager with Corruptors for support and a lot of Banelings as well. It's not a unit comp that will go down easily. Really getting deja vu from the previous game, though. Once again, we have Corruptors trying to use their caustic spray ability on the Nexus, but this time around it's not nearly as many, so the Nexus will stay alive. Do we add on additional probes, MC? I mean, we're adding on additional gases. Archons would certainly not be... Okay, now we're gonna go back to probe production. A little indecisive right there. We also have a natural that's wide open. You could definitely get some Zerglings in there pretty easily. Do we have an observer up in the air yet? Nope. Do we have a prism? Nope. We're once again just gonna warp in from the other side of the map. Although, since these maps are pretty small to 2023 standards, maybe it's not that bad, actually. You can warp in from your base. Anyways, this is a good fight right here for Protoss, though, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I say that. A little bit ago, like, these traits are all pretty good, but a little bit ago he had a really solid eco, and right now the economy is a little bit shaky. Still, though, yeah, getting some good fights in. Just not able to reinforce this very quickly. Look at where the reinforcements are coming from. They're all the way from the other side of the map. Okay. Archons, though, are going to be super nice. I guess my main problem here with not clearing out the creep, right, is say, for example, that this fight wins... it doesn't win the game, right? What have you really achieved? Like, Zerg has not really been pushed back that much. There's no eco going down. There's no creep clearing going down. There's no guaranteed damage here to the Zerg. Whereas if you do have some sort of detection and you do have a prism here, it just simply makes the attack a lot more committed, but it also allows you to actually get some guaranteed work in. Because right now, if Zerg manages to stabilize, all of these traits have basically been for nothing. Okay. Still, though, I think this may just be enough. Yeah, Stephano just doesn't have that overwhelming number anymore, right? And that's really what you need as a Zerg in this type of game. There is a base in the bottom right-hand corner for the Zerg player right now that has been, well, unscouted. Archon at the very least is not gonna morph in. The hatchery here, yeah, it's gonna start gathering some resources, but the third base of our Zerg player has gone down. Some nice blink micro there as well from MC. GG is cold. And our South Korean Protoss gets another point on the board. Now, whenever I think about that Stephano Roach Max that I was talking about earlier, I also automatically picture it on the map Daybreak. This is another classic map, a map that was around for years and years and years in StarCraft. At the very least, that's what it feels like. I can look up how many tournament games were played on this one. Let me see. Tournament games, Liquipedia. Liquipedia keeps track of how many... Okay, 4,864 matches were played on Daybreak. For the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, Zerg has a win rate of 49.4%. That's one of the reasons, of course, why it's so popular. Man, that's actually a lot of games, though. 5,000 tournament games being played, basically, over the course of a map's existence. I mean, obviously, this map has been around for a long time, but I can imagine not a whole lot of tournaments run this map these days. Is it gonna be a Void Ray first once again, MC? I mean, that's what he's been doing every time so far, right? Yep, there it is. I don't know where MC learned this build. I feel like somebody must have told him what strategies to go for. Maybe this is kind of good if you're concerned about your opponent going for like an early game push or something like that. But Stephano is clearly not playing that style. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this. He's also been going for the pylon scout rather than the early game probe scout. So he hasn't blocked his opponent's natural a single time. I actually think blocking Stephano's natural here would not be a bad idea. Stephano thinking about going, I think, excuse me, for an extractor trick, but not exactly efficient. Incoming supply ship at docking bay 11. Transit shift team report immediately. Alright. Lovely. Never seen that before. It's gonna be an Oracle once again on the back of this. And I guess we're gonna go for a third Nexus right away as well. Yeah, so this definitely does show, though, that MC has been practicing the game, right? He's been practicing quite a bit, and this is the strategy that he settled on. That will probably keep him safe in, well, most early to mid-game scenarios. Probe here, is it going to be able to put down the Nexus? It will not. Nice little counterattack right there by Stephano. He's going to be able to grab at least one of these Adepts as well. Maybe the second one. Oracle not rallied in the right location. Void Ray gets pushed back. We could have had that second probe as well that was running down towards the third base location. Eventually, though, MC does take the base, but that's a 4.5 minute or so third Nexus. To put that in perspective, if you go for a normal, a quote-unquote normal expansion timing as a Protoss with a Stargate opener, usually in modern StarCraft 2 it goes down at about 345, maybe 350. So this one is certainly quite a bit delayed. And has MC really justified this opener here? I mean, he's killed an Overlord, he's killed 9 Zerglings, but not really due to the fact that this Void Ray here was produced. So I don't think I like this start all too much. Once again, though, we have a very quick 4th hatchery here in the middle of the map. Honestly, much too quick right here for Stephano. I think Stephano is kind of like doing the dark thing where he's hitting supply blocks and he's like, you know what I'll do? I'll play a little bit more flexibly. I'll try and, just adjust my strategy from here. But this is definitely a base that can get sniped. We've got 4 Overlords. We've got only 54 workers right now. We really do need to make sure that we, saturate that third base ASAP. Honestly, that's basically all of StarCraft 2's early game, right? Trying to saturate 3 bases. Doesn't matter if you play Terran, Protoss, or Zerg. In a normal macro game, saturating your bases as quickly as possible is the name of the game. Okay, so Stephano mixing it up a little bit here. Rather than going for the melee upgrade into the Banelings, he's going to be going into the missile upgrade and then the Roaches. I think this is a clever play. I think it's a good idea. Mostly because it's a lot easier to play than Ling Bane. Like, don't get me wrong, Ling Bane's styles are very powerful, and we see them all the time from the top tier players, but they're also a unit composition that's very flimsy. If you don't get value out of it, I mean, the resource loss graph looks like the one that we saw in the previous game where, I mean, there is a Baning Nest on the back of this right now, anyways, where it can very quickly backfire. No fleet beacon this time around. Instead, we've got ourselves a pretty normal follow-up together with the, well, the blink as well as the +1 ground weapons. MC is going to be able to get a nice power spike on his Stalkers. Robo facility here as well at a much more appropriate time. Although, knowing MC, he may just be producing a mass immortal out of this here instead. We'll have to see. There's the fleet beacon once again, together with a second Stargate. Yeah, you can see the themes, right? So the themes that these guys have been enjoying lately and what they've been practicing. Blink and charge follow each other up. Very nice. What are we gonna... Okay, we're gonna use the Robo facility here for an observer first. I don't mind that. Oracle coming to the front as well. +1 air weapons. Fires up pretty much immediately here for MC. He's only really he's just trying to buy some time, right? He needs to be careful he doesn't get surrounded. Losing these Stalkers at this point in the game would kind of suck. We should have some more reinforcements somewhere. We've got a lot of money in the bank, that's what we got. No reinforcements, but yeah, a little bit of... there we go. Get some additional weapons going. Void Ray apparently also decides to return back home. Yeah, problem is there's not really an answer right here to the Void Ray and the Oracle, right? So they're just going to continuously deal damage. Immediate... Okay, interesting. Okay, he's now seen it. Okay, I was going to say, in the previous game, I don't think he actually put down the Spire before he spotted the Stargate transition. But this time around, there's an Overseer in the main base, and he decides to put down the Spire as he sees that his opponent is once again going to go for that carrier approach. +1 melee, together with the +1 carapace. Baneling speed is coming up. I like the strategy here that Stephano is going for, but the problem is, right, here's like kind of the issue. He's gonna run out of minerals and gas very rapidly on a map as small as Daybreak. There's just not that many bases available. So this is one of those, I'm gonna play a 15-minute long game type of strategy, and it certainly could work out, but if the game goes on for longer than 15 minutes, Stephano will just simply not have the mineral fields to mine anymore, because I mean, the base in the top left is effectively the only one that he can still comfortably take. This expansion over here, I guess, is technically his. If you draw a line through the middle of the mini-map, it's on his side of the map. Maybe he could opt for this one instead, but what I'm getting at is that there's only a very limited amount of mineral fields, and unless he manages to clear out his opponent's bases very quickly, he is gonna be in a world of trouble, just because he's gonna mine out these bases super quickly, and he's gonna, yeah, not get any cost-efficient trades. Carriers, though, are out. This time around, okay, we've got the Templar Archives as well at a bit of a different timing, but still in a powerful spot. 91 drones right here for Stephano. Yeah, so Stephano is playing a modern strategy on an old map. And I don't know if that's really possible. Obviously, there's always moments where the Protoss player can slip up, right? And if suddenly a bunch of Banelings slip through the cracks, or you get a good detonation here and there. But, like, assuming Protoss plays well, I don't know if there's enough mineral fields to really make this kind of strategy work in 2023 on a map like Daybreak. In the early days of StarCraft 2, this is one of the most significant changes that Blizzard has ever made to the game, and it's one of my personal favorite, actually. I think this was with the introduction of Legacy of the Void. They drastically reduced the amount of minerals in a mineral field. So once upon a time, these mineral fields held just way more resources, and it allowed players to sit on two bases for a lot longer. Kind of like what you can do in StarCraft Brood War, even to this day, right? But, well, this Daybreak edition, you can see it right there above the minimap. It's the Void edition, meaning that these mineral fields are gonna run out pretty quickly. And, yeah, you only have a very limited amount of cash. That being said, I wonder if it's possible to play this map in 2023. Maybe with some small adjustments, with higher mineral counts in, like, the main and in the natural. I don't know. The reason why I really like that change is because it really reduced the amount of turtling that we saw. Like, right now in the current meta, I think we see enough turtling as it is. But a lot of players would just simply sit back on, like, two bases for 20 minutes and not really do anything. It was a little bit boring. Just trying to go for your ultimate death ball, and that is something that was very difficult, of course, to do in Brood War, because, well, turns out Brood War is a bit of a different game. Anyways, Stephano has been building up. He's finally maxed out. Does he have a unit composition that can deal with this very scary Protoss force? Storm has completed just now as well when it comes to its research, and I think it's going to be an absolutely critical, oh god, there it is, critical ability. Okay, nicely done right there. We do have the base here in the bottom right-hand corner in a little bit of trouble. But this is a very passive approach from both players. And I think it works out for the Protoss player very nicely. This kind of reminds me of my own ladder games. It's like, yeah, you do a pretty good job. You get a nice economy out. You get, you know, a really scary army. And then you make one mistake and you lose everything. Okay. That was pretty rough. Not a perfect engagement right there for Stephano whatsoever. He's going to have to reinforce this with more and more of the same units. But MC is immediately going to capitalize on this. He knows that there's a lot of money on the line for this match. Of course, he's at match point right now as well. Can he obtain the victory with this attack right here, right now? Again, he's pushing without a prism. He does have an observer in the mix, so I guess we're 50% of the way there. Storming some of his own units as well. Here come those Corruptors, though, swooping in. Okay, we're gonna storm our own carriers here, too. Blinking the Stalkers into the Psionic Storm as well. I don't think that's where they should have gone. Couple High Templar coming from left field. I mean, they don't have enough energy for a storm right now, but very soon they will. Don't think that was my perfect engagement, but, yeah, okay. It worked out, I guess. At this point, Stephano's economy has been reduced significantly, right? Only 67 workers remain. That hatchery is going to go down. Big Zergling counterattack on the other side of the map, but battery overcharge is going to keep that alive. Maybe over here in the bottom right-hand corner we can get some value in. MC could do a warp in, though. There we go. We should be okay. Only warping in 4 out of the 8 gateways. But it's okay. He turns out to be okay. Yeah, okay. Unless Stephano manages to get another killer engagement in. Maybe get a couple of free pickings like this one over here. We are seeing a Zerg player in a lot of trouble. There's the Greater Spire coming up, so he's thinking about going Broodlords together with Corruptors here, and I don't think that would be a bad choice. But of course, that transition is going to be pretty expensive. And once again, MC, I think what he should probably just do is sit back and try to max out once again. +3 ground weapons is going to finish up. I wouldn't mind seeing some additional carrier production. I think that would be really powerful, but I understand that he may not feel comfortable doing so. We're going to see a recall right here on a lot of Stalkers. Trying to keep that Nexus alive. One of the carriers accidentally caught right there in the recall as well. Maybe not quite ideal, but at the very least, oh, Corruptors keep flying. At the very least, the Nexus still lives. Okay. +2 melee. Very important upgrade. Baneling's trying to go around the site here, but MC does get a bit of vision of it. Lovely little Zealot positioning there. Assuming he noticed it on the minimap, this really shouldn't deal any damage. One of the... Oh, he's trying to kill his own probe. But the probe is being healed up right now by the... Okay, that's awkward. Okay. Well, 5 probes only is honestly not that much. There's also a big fight once again, at least, well, building up here in the center. Yeah, so he goes all the way up to carriers and then he transitions away from it. It's kind of interesting. It definitely can catch Zerg players off guard though, because that's still a lot of supply caught up in Corruptors. That's why I do like having a Greater Spire here. There's just too much supply caught up in those Corruptors here at this point. He really needs to morph them into Greater Spire units if possible. Archons don't manage to... Ooh, no retarget there. But they managed to get underneath those Corruptors. They could have probably sniped the majority of them. Still, this Protoss army is done messing around. There's really not a whole lot that Stephano has available right now to try and shut these units down. And I believe that that means that MC, yeah, is looking for the 5,000 additional dollars. 17.5k on the line right here for the first place prize. Like I said, the second place prize is 12.5k. It's indeed MC who obtains the victory in the StarCraft 2 Legends tournament that was played at Gamers 8. Now, one thing that I thought was kind of cool, at the end of the tournament, one thing MC said was, the boss toss is back. I don't know if he just came up with something cool to say, because I got nerd chills when he said it, but maybe there's a chance he's got to start competing in tournaments once again. Who knows?